Hey everyone, I had a request from one of my viewers to do a quick video on how I program my decoders for use of the Protothrottle. So I've got one of these Protothrottles. Those of you who don't know about it, it's the best thing since sliced bread. Gives you a throttle that's like a control stand, and perfect for switching engines. Just makes a complete different experience. It slows everything down and just makes it more realistic as well, which is great. But you've got to make a few adjustments to your decoders. And my ones, I've used lock sound decoders with the ScaleTrains and also some other Katos as well. So there's some slight adjustments you need to make to those decoders to make them work well with the Protothrottle for momentum and for use with the notching and everything. So I'm just going to do a quick video now to showing you how I do that for this new SD40-2 from ScaleTrains, and we'll see what it does. Let's get going. So this locomotive has still got the default settings. All I've changed is the road number. I've changed it from 3 to 8019. And I'm going to just show you what the Protothrottle does on the default settings. So I'm just going to first show you the headlight. Now on the Protothrottle you've got two different selectors for headlights, for the rear headlight and for the front headlight. And for each one you can have a dim or bright setting. So I'm going to put the front headlight on dim. You'll see nothing happens. I put it on to bright and the headlight comes on. So that's a change we'll need to make sure that the dim setting on the Protothrottle actually puts the headlight into dim. So that's one change we'll need to make. So I'll switch the headlight back off again. And now let's see, I'm just going to put the sound on and then we're going to see what happens with the notches. I'll show you what it does in the default settings. So I'm going to put the sound on. So you can hear it's quite loud at the moment. So that's one change we're going to have to make, is reduce the sound a bit. I'm just going to put the headlight on. And I'm just going to do notch 1 and then go into notch 2 and then back down to idle, and we'll see how quickly it stops. So here goes into notch 1. And then notch 2. And then idle. So you can see in notch 2 it goes quite fast, and when you put it down to idle it stops quite quickly. So there's the two settings we need to change. We need to reduce the speed of the notches, and we need to reduce we need to increase the momentum so that you have to use the brake to stop it. So let's go to the programming track and make some changes. So I've loaded the decoder settings into LokProgrammer. So you can see here it's showing 8019, which is the locomotive number, and that's the only thing I've changed. I haven't changed anything else. So first of all, I've got to just say that this video is based on a video that Tim Garland from the Seaboard Central YouTube channel put out. He put out a great video on programming his SD40-2 to work well with the LokProgrammer. So I'm using the settings he's used, or partly using the settings he's used. I'm not making all the changes he's done, but I found that the settings he's used work great with these lock sound decoders when you're using the LokProgrammer and when you're using the Protothrottle with it. So I'll put a link to his video at the end. He's got a great YouTube channel. He's got an amazing layout, and he's got some really good tutorial videos on there on setting decoders and various other things to do with layouts as well. So this is basically partly based on his original video. So let's get to the changes. So I'm not going to change anything in the address tab. I'm going to go straight to the driving characteristics. Now the first thing to notice is the time to stop to maximum speed at the moment is set for 17 seconds. So that's fairly fast. From 0 to notch 8, it's going to take 17 seconds to get to full speed. So I don't want it that fast. I want to make it a little bit longer. So I've set this for 25 seconds. So you can either just use the arrow keys here and go up to where it says 25 seconds there, or you can just put in the value here. I've used the value of 28, which gives around 25 seconds, which is a good time to go to maximum speed from 0. And then you'll do the same thing for maximum speed to stop. At the moment, again, it's 17 seconds. Now, it's way too quick from maximum speed to 0. You want to coast really nicely. So I've set that to a setting of 71, which works out at 63 seconds. So if I change this to 71, I'll just click in here. You can see it's going to take 63 seconds to go from maximum speed to stop. So this basically forces you to use the brake to get it to come to a stop rather than letting it coast. Otherwise, it's just going to coast for a minute. So you don't want it to do that. You want to be able to use the brake. So this is a good setting to use. Gives a lot of momentum and enables you to use the brake to give it a nice smooth stop. So that's all I'm going to change in this setting. I'm now going to go to the function mapping. And currently the front light is on F0 and it's based on direction. So if you change direction to reverse, the rear light comes on, go forward, the front light comes on. Now we want those to be independent. We want to be able to turn them on and off independently, just like on a real locomotive. So I'm going to get rid of this line and I'm going to change the front light to just be any direction. So I'm going to get rid of the direction. I'm just going to say ignore. So that just means F0 switches the front light on regardless of whether it's going forward or reverse. Now on the Protothrottle, you've got a dimming function on the rotary knob. So I'm going to set the another function for the dimmer. And I'm just going to look for a free slot. I've chosen F15 for this. So on F15, I'm going to choose it to be the front light. And I'm not going to set a direction, so it's just F15. And then in the function over here, I'm going to set it as dimmer. So you've got F0 front light and F15 front light dimmer. And then I'm going to do the same with the rear lights. I've chosen to use function F5 for the rear light. So I'm going to change to rear light over here. And again, no direction. I'm going to get rid of this F6. F6 isn't used in this, so I'm just going to get rid of that line. I'm going to change this to ignore the direction. And I'm going to set this to rear light as well. I'm going to set this to dimmer. So F5 is rear light on, F6 is rear light dimmer. And then on the Protothrottle itself, you change the function settings on that so that it responds to these functions. I'm not going to show you how to do that. It's better to read the manual because it's quite a long-winded process to do that. But just so know, I have changes. I'm going to change the Protothrottle settings to match the function settings I'm using over here. And that'll enable the rotary knob to function like it should do. Okay, so the next option I'm doing now is I'm going to go down to the motor settings. So in the motor settings, you can see at the moment it's set to use V start, V mid, and V high. I'm going to change this to use speed curve. And Tim did some testing with a speedometer, which unfortunately I don't have, so I can't test my own one. But the settings he's come up with give a nice realistic speed and gives you a nice control with your notches. He basically set it so that it responded correctly with each notch setting on the throttle. So I'm going to use the settings he's used. So let's start here. So we're going to have here the index 1 is at the value of 1. Index 2 I'm going to set for 20. 3 is going to be 40. 4 is 53. 5 is going to be 75. 6 is going to be 90. You come to 7, which is 115. 8 will be 135. 9 is 151. and 10 is 167. Oh, sorry, 167. 67. 11 is going to be 188. Then you'll have 12, 208. 13 is 219. 219. 14 is 228. 15 will be 239. And then 16 to 28 is going to be 255. So just to go through that again, I'll just show you. So 1 is 1, 2 is 20, 3 is 40, 4 is 53, 5 is 75, 6 is 90, 7 is 115, 8 is 135, 9 is 151, 10 is 167, 11 is 188, 12 is 208, 13 is 219, 14 is 228, 15 is 239, and then 16 onwards is 255. Now what this does is it gives you the top speed at a lower speed. So you can see here the speed curve is quite nice and gentle over there, but it gives you the correct, it'll work out correctly with the notching on the Protothrottle. What it also does as well in the maximum speed, so I'm going to set that to 50, the setting of 50. So that gives a speed of 19%. So that works out that the maximum speed is not going to be fast at all. Setting the maximum speed at 50 means it's not going to shoot off like a rocket when you put it at maximum speed. It's going to be a nice slow speed for a switcher, which is what you want. You don't want a switcher to go fast. So setting it at maximum speed of 50, it reduces the maximum speed way down. So these settings will enable you to have a nice smooth power range using your notches on your Protothrottle. So that's all we need to change on this setting here. The only other thing I changed was under the sound settings. As we heard on the test earlier, it is very loud. So I'm setting the master volume. I'm going to set that down to 50%. So 50% is about 64. So I'll change it down. You can see that it's 50%. And it lowers this volume way down. And just going to make it a bit more, less overpowering. Especially if you have quite a few locomotives on the layout. You don't want it to be very loud. And obviously you can adjust it whatever setting you want, but 50% is quite a good setting. You can also change the other volumes as well if you want to. So your different sounds, so your bell and your horn and all that, you can change any of those sounds. See, for every sound you can change it. I'm just using the default settings for now, and I'll just adjust them when I get when I play with the locomotive more. When I work out the different sound volumes, I might adjust some of these. I'm just going to keep them at the default settings for now. So now we've made all these changes. I'm now going to write these changes to the decoder. So click on the write decoder, and yes. So now it's going to send all these decoders settings up to these changes up to the decoder, and I'm now going to also save the project as well. So I'm going to put it as BN 8019. 19. Get it right. And I change it. I always make a note of what the decoder is as well. So I can always reload the project if I want to. And it's also backup, just in case something happens to the decoder, I can reload it from this backup. So I'm just going to save this. Okay, now let's put it back on the layout and see what happens. Now let's see what the loco does now after programming it. It should work a lot better with Protothrottle. So let's fire it up, and I'm going to put it into notch 1 and then notch 2, and we'll see what the difference is there. Okay, first I'm going to do the headlights. I'm going to put it into dim. And you can see the headlight has now come on, and I put it into bright, and it goes on bright. So that works perfectly. Back to dim again, and then off. So that has worked. So the decoder settings now match up with the Protothrottle controls, which is perfect. So let's get the headlight back on again. And it's also not directional as well, which is great. So I can have the rear headlights on dim, and I can just adjust it manually, which is perfect. It's still a bit loud, even though it's on 50%. So I can take it down a lot more, I think. But anyway, let's just see what it does with running. So I'm now going to put it into notch 1. That's a nice slow speed. Notch 2. And that's still a little bit fast, but it's better. Now if I switch it off into idle, you can see it takes a lot longer to slow down. Still going, still going. And this is where I can actually use the brakes. So that did it automatically, could just slow down to a good stop. But I'll just show you what I can do with the brakes. So I'm just going to put it into reverse. And I'll put it into notch 3. And then down to idle. And then I'll use the brakes. And see, I can get it to come to a nice gradual stop just using the brakes, which is perfect. So that has worked out really nicely. I'm just going to adjust the volume just to take that down a bit, but this is going to work nice as a switching loco. It's going to be really nice and controllable, which is what you want with a switching engine. So I can just put it into, so just get it going with notch 2, down to idle, and then use the brakes. I've just got real fine control of it, which is perfect. So I'm going to have good fun with these two. So there we go. Any questions? Let me know. Well, it just shows you what difference it makes just to make a few adjustments to the decoder, and it just makes it much more realistic. You can use the braking functions more, and it just makes it a lot better when you're switching. Gives you more control over the switching, and also just looks better as well. So looking forward to programming the rest of my locomotives as well. I'm going to have, I've only got one Protothrottle at the moment, so I'm just going to use that in one of my yards. I mean, eventually I might get a couple more. They're not cheap, but they're great to use. So I might have another 1 or 2 in the switching areas. But it just brings another element of realism to the operations. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. My next video is going to be on continuing with the scenery. So that's coming up very soon. I'll show you the progress I've done with that. In fact, I might speed that up because I've progressed a lot since my last video, so I'm a bit behind with my videos on that. So I might actually just put them all into one video and just catch up with that. So that's coming up soon. In the meantime, make sure you like and subscribe so you can keep up to date with all my upcoming episodes. In the meantime, happy modeling. See you soon.